Hello everybody, this is Stephen Morrow from the Commodore 64 Brain channel. So first of all, I want to send prayers out to all the victims in California with all the fires that are going on, especially if you have any families out there. There's just a lot of tragedy going on, so I wanted to acknowledge that first thing. Second of all, I wanted to apologize for being away for so long, but I'll probably be doing another apology. And I don't feel like I have to apologize for anything, but a lot of things have changed here in my life recently. More effectively in my life is that I've got different roles in my job now where I'm actually a lead web developer for the state of Arizona, so I don't really have any time commitments to do anything pretty much anymore. I wish I did. I wish I could. If you look at the background, you may also see that I have some of my Commodore sitting up here, and I even have the Apple. I even bought an Apple IIc computer, or 2E computer, not too long ago, probably about 6 months ago, and I was kind of, until it blew up on me, so. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know I'm not dead. I'm still here. My wife did get me this shirt for, I think it was Christmas, Commodore 64. It was either Christmas or my birthday, I forget. It was probably my birthday. But yeah, it's been a good while, so unfortunately, the path of YouTube has changed, as probably many of you know on YouTube. A lot of the monetary policies have all changed, so you really can't make any money anymore on YouTube. And not that that would be a real reason to stick with YouTube, but YouTube is like running a business, right? So initially, you're putting all this stuff into it. You're putting all of your supplies into it. You're putting all your skills and your trades and everything, and your time invested into it. So unfortunately, there's no returns coming back. So your profits are not meeting the demands. And not to say I'm running a YouTube business or anything, or even making any money, but the fact is it doesn't meet and justify the ends of trying to continue something like this. I wish I could, but like I said, to the time constraints going on in my life, I don't really have any allotted time for this anymore. I just felt it was necessary for me to kind of get this off my chest and to let you guys know that, first of all, I do want to let you guys know it's been an amazing journey. There's no doubt about that in my mind. From the moment I started this YouTube channel, oh my gosh, what was that, back in 2007 or 2008, I think? I know it was a long, quite period of time ago. And during those time and ages, I remember there was like no videos out there for the Commodore 64. There was probably one out there sitting, I think there was one, I actually do remember now, there was one little video, but it was like people just showing a basic code screen. And it was just real simple. It did have like 45,000 views because obviously it was probably the only one, grabbing the attention of people that were looking for a video. And it didn't really have any, it didn't have any competition or anything like that. So yeah, so at that time it was a different journey, a different era. So at that time, it was honestly, at that point I thought, making a YouTube channel wouldn't be too hard. And I thought, it was very new in the beginning of YouTube. I think they had probably started like 3 or 4 years before that. And then somebody, I think I was gaming or one day online, and they said, hey, have you ever thought about making a YouTube channel? And of course I first started with the Grand Theft Auto, and then eventually I got into Commodore 64. But then, yeah, at that point, I was like, this is kind of interesting, something I'd like to try out. And sure enough, I jumped on the bandwagon like anyone would have and just started moving forward and just kind of seeing where it would go, and I didn't really expect any outcome. It wasn't anything about money in that day. Of course, I had more free time in that day. Even being a single guy at the time, I was able to actually come home and turn on my computer and stay up throughout the night because I used to do that quite a bit. But things have changed in the world. So I guess the point I'm making throughout all this is, it was a journey, right? This was all about a wonderful journey, about starting, from somewhere, kind of seeing where you would go with it. I didn't really know at that point where it was really going to go. I didn't really know if anybody was even going to be interested, in the Commodore 64, or if it would have just been like maybe get 2 or 3 views and that would have been it. And I probably would have just quit it at that point. Because if you don't have a captured audience, if you don't have people engaging in it, you're basically talking to yourself. It's kind of like being on a Steam video, right? And you're basically starting off a brand new Steam video, trying to get people interested, and there's like nobody there. So you're basically having a conversation with yourself. That's exactly how it is for any YouTuber who starts out. Now, obviously, these days, it's probably very much the same because it's very, very hard to get ahead in YouTube. And I'm not going to joke around with you guys. If you want to start a YouTube channel, especially in anything like old 8-bit computers, don't expect a payout or anything. Don't expect to even live off of this. Make sure you still keep your job and everything, because that's never going to happen, to be honest with you. So for me, I wish I did have more time. The passion will never leave my heart. I've always enjoyed game design from the day of I first had my Atari 65 XT computer, and that was back in like 1985. I was still in high school at the time. Now I think maybe nearly out of high school at the time, and it was just it's so interesting because I remember I was talking to a neighbor. And I learned that he had a Commodore 64 computer. Now I was still engaged, and I'm giving kind of a story here. I was engaged at that time heavily into the Atari computer, but then I was more curious about this new Commodore 64 computer because I heard it was coming out and it was already, people were buying it or whatever, and of course it had the games and the graphics. And I remember I was trying his name was Jason when I lived in Ohio. I was trying to get his attention and see if he could set up a time where I could come over and see him. I'm not kidding you guys. It probably took about a month, if not more, before he finally, and he just lived right across the street from me, before he finally had some time to show me it. And I guess he was pretty active, outside playing with his friends and all that, so he really wasn't super into the computer. But finally, when he did, I walked over, basically right down the sidewalk, maybe it was a couple blocks down, to his house. And I walked inside, and I remember as soon as I stood at the door, his mom walked through, and she's looking through the screen door, and I'm seeing this blue glowing in the background. I'm like, there it is. There's the Commodore computer he's told me about. This is interesting. And she opened up the door. Well, hi, yeah, I'm Jason's friend, from school or whatever, and he just set up some time so I could come and check out his Commodore 64 computer. I may not stay a while, but he just, he said I could come over. He's sitting over at his computer. He didn't come to the door to greet me, right? So he's sitting over his computer. So I went over there and I sat down, and he pulled up a little chair, and I was sitting on the left, he was sitting on the right. And I remember he was just, going to his computer, showing me some of the games. I think he had G.I. Joe. I know he had Rambo and stuff like that. And whatever else games, he had some other games there. But the point I'm making is, I remember when I asked him about BASIC finally, and he finally had shut off the games after he showed me all the amazing graphics. And yes, I had Ghostbusters, by the way, too. That was pretty cool. And he finally turned off the computers, and he basically turned on BASIC, right? Turn the computer off, turn it back on, and it boots to BASIC. It's because you have to type that load asterisk, comma 8, comma 1 to start up a semi-language program to launch those games. So he started in BASIC. I remember he was just typing on it. And now keep in mind at this time, I had already gotten some skills with basic programming, was even on my way to designing my first game in a semi-language for the Atari 65 XT computer. But I didn't realize he wasn't interested in programming, because I watched him on the screen. He started typing and stuff, and he hit an ear. He goes, watch this. And he'd hit like the key, and all of a sudden it would say syntax error, and he would laugh. Ha ha ha. I'm like, what is this guy thinking, And he was like doing that over and over, and he goes, well, this isn't all about that. This is about the games. I'm thinking, no, dude, there's a lot more you can do with it than that. I don't really know a lot about the Commodore, but I do know it's an 8-bit computer. Like any 8-bit computer, you can program it. It runs in the background by binary. It's not just being run and magically putting games on the screen or anything like that. So eventually I left after that, and he said goodbye or whatever. I don't think I ever came back over. But I remember at that point in time, it was kind of set in my sights that I really wanted to get a Commodore computer. And I was like, where am I gonna go out and try to find this Commodore computer? And eventually one thing led to another. I was able to get a better job or whatever at that time. I started saving up, and I got the Commodore 64 computer, because it actually did cost more than my other computer at the time, which is probably why I first passed on it when I was at oh gosh, I forgot the name of that store. But anyways, there was a great store in Akron, Ohio, a toy store. It wasn't Toys R Us. It was Children's Palace, actually. Yeah, Children's Palace, where I first bought the Atari 65 XT computer. And then later, I think I went to the same store and I got the Commodore 64 computer, as I recall. Because I didn't have any other friends that were going to part with their Commodore 64, so I had to get my own. And eventually I did. I got my own Commodore computer. And at that point, I remembered how hard it was to kind of like BASIC, and I kind of like felt like Jason. I went there and I started kind of hitting and playing with it. Now, I knew if you hit enter, you're just going to get a syntax error because there's nothing there. So I started programming the BASIC, and I realized from the Atari computer to the Commodore 64 computer, these are two different types of systems going on. Unfortunately, the Commodore 64 in BASIC is not well equipped as the Atari 65 XE is, and basically communicating directly with the semi-language programs to be able to run them in the background. You essentially need a really good editor just to build anything on a Commodore 64 back in those days, and I didn't even have an editor. Of course, on the Atari computer, I didn't really even need an editor. I did have an editor, but initially with the Atari computer, it communicated much better, using parameter type strings or whatever. You could use these inside of these x equals USR. You set a variable and you set it to USR. Basically, it allows you to access semi-language programs, and you could pass controls back and forth to it. Anyways, it was much easier to communicate, I felt, in this gaming design, since they had, more easy accessible stuff. And with all due course, they're both still great machines. It was only until I finally invested in the Commodore 64 and I got an assembler that, I think it was the Commodore 64 assembler or whatever, that I finally started really learning that, you can do some stuff with this if you just work at it enough. It's just harder to do it in BASIC than, the other computer. And then I started, playing with it, and I started working on my first game, and that's probably the first video I posted on YouTube. Initially, it was just a guy running across the screen, and it had some scrolling background, or not scrolling, but it had I think it had like a scrolling river or something at the bottom. And it was a simple screen to screen. It was no scrolling or anything like that. And I remember people like, wow, that's fantastic, It had no audio, by the way, because I couldn't figure out how to get the Commodore 64 computer, since I was directly on the Commodore and not using an emulator at the time. I couldn't figure out how to get that working so that people could hear it. So I just basically I think I plugged it up to a VHS player or whatever, recorded it, and somehow got it to the PC computer. But I remember it got a lot of views, and at that time I thought, well, this is interesting. Maybe there is something more to this Commodore 64 than I first thought, and maybe this 8-bit has a chance or whatever. And then that's when I took a gamble, and I started switching over from the GTA videos at that time, and I moved over and started doing the Commodore 64 stuff. So yeah, that's kind of a short journey of where I've been. And of course, eventually we got through and we met people later up in line. I started a game design channel and had people coming in, and we started doing streaming and stuff like that. I think that was around 2016, 2017. And I met up with this really cool guy. I think he was from Australia. His name was Siggy. And he really started teaching me a lot about assembly language that I never even understood before. I mean, this guy was pretty on par with all his stuff. And eventually he just gave me the project. I guess he had gotten bored with it, and he handed it over to me. And I wouldn't want to joke with you, but this was pretty complex. We didn't really have any documentation on how this thing worked. All I could do is kind of since we were recording the videos, I could watch him in the videos, go back and rewind them and look at them and try to understand even how the scrolling worked and even how this this game worked. And it took me a couple of years. I wouldn't joke around that I eventually got into it and I was able to understand it better. And then that's when I started coming out with, I think it was the first scrolling Commodore I put up on YouTube. I said Commodore 64 scrolling demo or whatever it was, and then people started watching. I started showing them how you could just take a sprite on a screen and you could start moving it in the background. But at that time, I didn't really know how to do anything. He wasn't jumping or anything. He was just moving around in a simple little screen or whatever. But it was scrolling, so because it was a scrolling program or demo, what you want to call it, it was actually my first start of that Commodore 64 game project, which of course I realize has more videos to go, and I wish I did, honestly. If I were retired, sitting in my apartment right now, didn't have a worry in the world, didn't have to go and clock in remotely to a computer and check with my boss to see where my current projects are, and just hope I can meet those deadlines every week, yeah, I would dedicate a lot more time to this. But I don't have the time commitments anymore. Honestly, guys, I wish I did. Now, I still do have the Commodore 64 Facebook group that is still going on. I have not been active on it, I'll admit that. I might be able to throw some, little examples up there or something, but I just don't have the time commitments anymore to do this stuff. Now, I also have the c64brain.com channel. Now, keep in mind, that will remain active, and just so you understand, I'm paying for that yearly out of my own pocket, so never got any dividends. I did start a membership with there for a while, but unfortunately it kind of phased off. So yeah, that didn't really go well, and I just I just don't have the resources and the time commitments to do this. Of course, balance it with the marriage as well. There's a lot of factors to consider versus when you're a single guy. First started in 2007, right? Working on, I think I was working in the banking industry then, coming home and spending hours and hours just putting together videos and editing them or whatever. It was much easier then. But of course, there are people that still find time to allot to this. They still have time to commit, to making Commodore videos. And I think they're a great community of people. I would never want to say they're not. I just think it's amazing that people still have that passion, and don't ever lose that passion. But if you don't have the time commitments, don't risk your job or anything for it, because your job is very important and they're very hard to come by these days. So I'm pretty fortunate to have the job I do have. And grateful that eventually what happened is our lead developer had left and she had moved on to another position, so the manager handed it directly over to me. So I'm in charge right now of managing the state's intranet project, and we are rebuilding it. So this is a major project. So a lot of work, a lot of development and meetings constantly at work and stuff like that. And we're even increasing our remote days, so I'll be in the office more than I used to be. I'm sorry, we're decreasing our remote days, so I'll be in the office more than I used to be. So, yeah, I could probably go on and on about things, but I think you get the point that there's really, there's no time commitments to this anymore. I wish there were. You're free to ask your questions, rant however you feel you need to do. Ask me questions if you still have time. I'll try to answer questions, but I just don't have the time for it anymore, guys. I wish I did. Now, the last I was working on this was probably about, oh my gosh, it was probably about, I'd say about 5 months ago, maybe somewhere older than that, maybe about 5 or 6 months ago. I was working with a guy on Facebook I had met, and he started designing some of the newer screens for my game, and they were pretty fantastic. But I never really got around the time to doing that. I just got busy at work at that point, and I don't know about you, but when you work for a government job, there's not a lot of IT resources that are practically built for you. You're building stuff from the ground up, so it's a lot of work in general. So it's a long process just to kind of explain the journey to you, but I just really wanted, and I felt like I had somebody say, hey, you haven't made a video in a while, where are you? And I just wanted people to let you know, yeah, I'm still here. I'm still breathing. Yeah, it's been a great journey. I just encourage you, if you still want to make these kind of videos, definitely do them. Just know it's a harder journey, like I said, when you first start out, and don't expect rewards in it. Don't expect to be living off of this and just be sitting home in your little man cave or whatever, think it's all going to work out for you, and you just sitting in your gaming chair and just, making the world work for you while you don't have to go out and work. Many people do not have that opportunity and privilege, so yeah. So it's been great for everything. So I just want to say thanks, guys, for everything that you've done here. I appreciate all the feedback. I appreciate all the help, even people who've helped work on repairing my, Commodore computer at the time. So just to let you know, I'm still here, but I don't really have anything more. This was obviously not a well-prepared video, but it is a video. So just to let you know that I am still here, but it's not a happy video. I wish it were, but it's just, things have changed. Life has changed so much, and yeah, sometimes we just have to go where we have to and take on the responsibilities that we need to be the people that help us move forward in our life and stuff like that. So yeah, guys, I thank you so much for everything, for listening to me and everything, and just keep persevering in whatever you can. If you have time commitments, try to balance them. I wish I could, but I don't even have that even work off of time to try to get work projects done, so it's pretty tasking at times. But if you have the time, yeah, try to start some videos. I would encourage you, and I would never want to discourage anybody ever from doing something like this, because it's a wonderful journey. Actually, it's you meet a lot of people. I've talked to people who made real games in the industry and stuff like that, and just it's interesting. But you just have to do what you have to do, right? We all have to do what we have to do. We have to make the choices we have to make, and we have to go with them in every step of the way. But maybe I'll be back one day. I don't know. But, like I said, the website will still remain. I could still pay for it, so I'm not really worried about that at the time period. But, for what it is, it was a great journey. What can I say? So, yeah, guys, want to thank you for everything you've done, and just hope you understand that this is nothing you've done wrong. This is nothing that you had any play in or any part in. It's this decision I have to make for what's best for my family and all that. So, yeah, guys, just want to say thank you for everything, and just take care of yourselves, and just continue to persevere in everything you do. Never lose the passion with your computers as much as you have, and if you have the time, move forward on that. But game design is not an easy track or a journey. But you work hard enough at anything, you can put your mind to it, you can accomplish things greatly. So, yep, I want to just say thank you so much, and you guys have a great night, good day wherever you are. Bye.